Hi, so I thought I'd make a video today just to help you out. I know this is the sort of thing when we were looking at building that would have really helped us out with some of the stuff that you need to know, but it's sometimes hard to find that information. So most of my channel is all music stuff, but occasionally I'll just do an extra video just to help people out. So we're going to talk today about building rurally. Maybe you've got a section, maybe you're looking for a section, maybe you're still in the process of dreaming about taking that step. So we're going to share with you today a whole lot of stuff that you need to know. This isn't a discouraging video. There's no way I'm going to discourage you from taking those steps, but some of these things are better to know at the start than further on. Building out here in the country is a great way to create equity. You can generally buy a lot more land for a lot less just by being a little bit further out of town, but as long as you're close enough to town, you can still have a great value. So here we're between 15 and 20 minutes from town, which is just far enough to bring the cost of the land down, but to keep the value up. So we'll start by covering the land itself. So there's some key things to look for in land. The thing you need to know is most banks generally, if you buy bare land with nothing on it, they're going to call that bare land, and they'll only lend you 50% of its value. Okay, so what you need is services. So that's power, water, sewage, which of course in town is really easy because all that stuff's on the street and it's always available. Once you get that stuff on site out here, then they will lend you 75% of the land's value. Once you start building, then that will go up to 80%. So it's not like buying a house that's already built, because it's considered higher risk for the bank. So they won't just lend you straight out that 80% that you could borrow on a house already built. So in terms of services, there's some key things to look at when you're looking for a section. So for example, our house is all run off rainwater. So the roof catches the water, it goes down into those two tanks down behind us there, and then it's pumped back to the house, and that's how we collect water for the house. So consider when you're designing a house to have a large surface area on your roof. Things like 2-story designs, when you hit summer and drought like this and you haven't caught enough rain during the winter, it's going to hit you pretty hard. So the bigger the surface area of the roof you can have, the better that's going to be for catching water. We have two 25,000 litre tanks, but that serves only the house, not the outside. For the outside water, we have access to a bore, which is a great thing to look for when you're looking at land, whether you have access to bore water that can serve all of your outside water. Some people have bores that they can run through their house. It just depends on the quality of that water, but generally it's a little bit lesser quality, so people use rainwater for the house, bore water for outside. So having access to a bore will give you one of your services, because you have access to water, which is going to help you to borrow that larger amount. The next important thing you need to look at is power. So we managed to get this site here that had power already on it. So I'll move a bit closer to the pole. So the thing you're looking for in terms of power is that grey box there, that's called a transformer, and that's what you're going to need to connect up to power. So this site already had the pole on it with the transformer on it ready to connect up, which is a huge bonus. You don't necessarily have to have that, but just know it's going to cost you money to put that in. So for example, a previous section we looked at, there were power lines across the road, and to bring the power from one side of the other, from one side of the road to the other, was going to cost $14,000 to put in an extra pole and to put that box on. And then you need to consider how you're going to get power from the pole to your house site, which of course we run underground, so that's going to cost you at least a few more $1,000s to get there, depending how far away you are from your power pole. The other thing to keep in mind there is trying to run the straightest line that you can to keep that distance down, because of course cabling, trenching, all those things are going to take longer if the distance is longer. Just keep in mind with that too that your meter box that traditionally goes on the garage side of the house doesn't necessarily have to. So for example, because our master bedroom is actually at that end of the house, in order to run a straight line, we just put our meter box on that side of the house. We also have an extra meter box down here by the pole. That just means if ever somebody needs to come up to read the meter, they can do that down here rather than coming all the way up to the house. So with power and water on site, you can generally call that serviced, and just put your storage system and your rainwater tanks in later on. But that's something you'll need to discuss with your bank. The next thing to consider is the driveway. How far away are you from the road? And what sort of driveway are you going to need? So for example, we've put a garage on the far end of the house there, which means that the driveway needs to go a little bit further to turn. But we've done that because of where north is, which is another consideration. So for us, north is about there. So of course, we wanted our master bedroom at that end that's going to be sunnier into the evening. So the driveway should come to your section if you're in a subdivision situation. It should be required that access is provided to the section. The driveway is one of the first things that's going to have to go in, because you need to get trucks up to your site. And in saying that, you don't want to do your finished driveway to start with, because the trucks are going to chew it up a bit. So this stuff here is about the roughest gravel you can get. It's called straight haul. Basically it's taken straight from the river. It's not refined. There's all sorts of different sizes in there. It's the cheapest stuff you can buy, but what it means, because it's not refined into similar sizes, is that it compacts in and settles in a little bit unevenly and can leave some potholes. So further down the track, you can put a finer gravel over top of this. So now, in doing your driveway, you want to get that done at the same time as the excavation, because the same guys are going to do it with the same machinery, and you don't want to pay for that machinery to come up twice. The other thing to consider with your power and water, if you're connecting up to a bore, is that you're also going to need to dig trenches, which can be done by the same guys again. You want to get power and water on site as early as you can for the sake of the guys doing the work. So you want to try and do that stuff at the same time, because power cables need to go 600 mil under the ground, and phone and water are at 400. So you can put them all in the same trench, just at different depths. You need some filling in between, especially between your power and your phone cables, so that you don't get interference. So the next thing is to think about where you're going to put your house. So the thing you want to look for is the flattest ground possible. You want to excavate out to flat land rather than trying to build up a foundation on an angle or anything like that. It's going to be cheaper to do the excavation than it is to build up with extra blocks and extra concrete and extra gravel and all that stuff. So this was the flattest part of our site that we thought was quite flat, until we came to do the excavation and found the true level. And you can see here how much we've actually had to take out to make it level. The other thing to consider with excavation is what you're going to do with everything that you take out. So for example, all of this area around here we have filled in with part of the excavation, and also the front lawn there, because that was all angling forward. We wanted a flat front lawn, so we track rolled a lot of the soil into there to create a flat area in front of the house. Also, when you're looking for a house site, you want to make sure that you've got nice solid hard ground. You want to make sure that you're not too close to any edges that may cause issues with council and that sort of thing. We were slightly closer here than you should normally be to an edge, so we had to have an extra survey done to show that edge was not like a cliff edge, and it was just where a track had been cut and that sort of thing. So just remember, you need to keep a bit of space around the house. The distance that you need is going to vary between different councils, so you can find all that stuff on your local council website. Okay, so you're also going to need to think about drainage. A great time to look at land is in the middle of winter when it's been raining for a week. See where all the water's going, making sure it's not coming through your house site. If it is, you can redirect it, but it's all going to be more work and more excavation. In the case of this place, we've got a valley on the other side with a creek in the bottom that everything drains to, and on this side we have a gully. The gully did run through here where we have filled in, so because of that we've dug another gully round behind the shed there to make sure that all the water from the hills is diverted through there and away from the house site. The other thing that you're going to need to consider is your wind zone. So some councils will give you wind zones if you put an address in. They'll have a map and show you the wind zones. Ours didn't, so there is a way to calculate what it's going to be. But first, the reason you need to do that is because it's going to change the cost of your house. Friends of ours started building a house and then found out partway through that they had to up the wind zone and it was going to cost them an extra 10 grand. And they ended up giving up on the whole build because of that extra cost. So it's important to find out before you start what your wind zone is going to be, so you know those figures all along and you're prepared for them. So there's a website called Easy Brace, EZY Brace, Jib Easy Brace, and in, I think it's the second or third page, you'll find a bit there about the wind zones and how to calculate them. It all depends on whether you're on the side of a hill or you're on top of a hill or you're surrounded by other houses. So we had the option here of going for high or very high. We chose to go for very high just because it is quite windy here, and it was only another $1,500 to make that step. Most housing companies build to a high wind zone as standard, but you just need to make sure that they are doing that. So for example, I don't know if you can see all the way up on top of that hill up there, there's a little house. It's more of like a weekender batch thing. So being up there and that exposed, they would be what's called SED, which is Special Engineered Design. And that's where it starts getting really expensive to upgrade to that sort of thing. Also, if you're looking at somewhere isolated like that, you've got to consider power costs, getting power up there, and a lot of people in those circumstances just go for solar power, which is what that one is, because it's cheaper to run solar power than it would be to get conventional power up there. So if you want to know what kind of soil you've got and how hard it's going to be and that sort of thing, a good thing to look for is something like this, a farm track that's been cut through, and you'll be able to see the edge. The grass is a bit long at the moment, but in the side of that you'll be able to see what the soil's like. So here we've got a bit of topsoil, and then we've just got hard clay underneath, which is quite good for building on. It means that it doesn't absorb a lot of water, so any water that comes through will travel basically through the topsoil on top of the clay. So that means for things like septic systems, you can't use a standard septic tank. You need something that's going to be able to get rid of the water. So on that note, this is the septic system we're using here. It's what's called a secondary septic system. So basically what it does is it filters out all the water and then it pumps it out. So you're going to need what's called an effluent field, which is somewhere you can pump all that water. So ours comes across the driveway and it's basically pumped out into this big flat area here that we did have as a paddock, but as we're doing more landscaping, we're deciding that we may make that into more of a front lawn. So you're going to need a reasonably large area, and it can't be too close to any waterways. So the more bedrooms you have on the house, the larger this area will need So ours is classed as a 5-bedroom, even though we don't use one of those rooms as a bedroom. So you can see one corner here is that little purple bit, and then I don't know if you can see right over in the corner there where that little sticker's poking up, that's the other corner of it. So it covers basically all of this area in here, which is a reasonable amount. So I think you can also put them on the sides of hills or something. Great for somewhere where you want to grow trees, because that water will be feeding them all the time and fertilising them a little bit too. And then we have rainwater tanks. So we have two 25,000 litre tanks, but like I said earlier, we also have bore water to serve our outside. If you were relying entirely on rainwater, you would probably want 3 tanks, just to have enough to cover all that outside usage as well. Remembering that you're probably going to have stock that are going to drink and that sort of thing. If you're at all unsure about how hard your ground is where you're hoping to build, you can get what is called a geotech report. Some sites may already have it done, some sites require it and others don't. So, and again, it's going to depend on what your council wants and that sort of thing. If you're going to get one of those done, talk to the builders and the housing company or whoever that you're going to be using. They can generally get it done much cheaper than you will if you just go straight to a civil engineer yourself for a geotech report. Keep in mind that part of what they're going to do is dig holes. So if you're unsure, you can have a hole dug yourself, or if you're ready for excavation, you're going to see pretty quick what's hard and soft when you do that. So of course another thing to consider in this day and age is internet. Being out in the country, access isn't always as simple as it is in town, having it right on the street. We do have it on the street here, but there aren't enough connections for all the houses. But there are other options. So this up here is a satellite system. Basically that gets beamed down from the top of the hill way up there somewhere. You won't see the thing, but basically it's beamed from town off a repeater up there and down to our satellite there. So there are options like that. There's things like farm side, although that can be a bit more expensive, but yeah, if you have to have it, you have to have it. Yeah, so just know that there are other options out there for that. Okay, so the other thing to take into consideration in all this is you're going to need a lawyer to read through all this stuff. It'll cost you maybe anything up to a couple of $1,000, something like that, but it's worth it for them to read through all this stuff, because I can read all this stuff all that I like. Not a lot of it makes that much sense, okay, but to a lawyer it does. So our lawyer could find out from this that the subdivision had actually been re-subdivided 3 times. They will also cross out things that they don't like and put things in if they need to. So for example, that one there simply states that if we weren't able to connect up to power on the site, that we wouldn't buy it. So yeah, lawyers, yeah, they might be expensive, but you really can't be without them in this sort of thing. And also a LIM report from the council. So sometimes maybe when you buy a house in town, you don't worry so much about this, you go and read the council file yourself. But when you're coming out and you're building, you're making a significant investment, so you really want all this information. So even like there's stuff in here about how prone it is to, you know, this one's actually ponding and suspected filling, liquefaction and ground shaking, and this also helps to tell us what sort of land we're on, and you can see there bedrock and regolith, whatever that is. Resource consents on nearby properties, yada yada yada. There's a whole lot of information in there. It's worth the investment and taking that time when you are putting this kind of investment in. You're also going to need a valuation for the bank. Again, that's going to cost money, but it's just something that you have to do. And you're going to need that right through your build anyway. So you're going to use a company to value the land to start with. Keeping in mind that sometimes that can work in your favour. If the price is too high and the value doesn't stack up, you can drop the price a bit. So another thing to look for on the land is things like what kind of weeds you're going to have to tackle. So for example, here we have a lot of blackberry. We don't have gorse, fortunately, but we do have a lot of blackberry, which does take work, but it actually comes up in the valuation, so it will actually drop the value a little bit having all that, which is good when you're buying because you can get a lower price, and then you just got to put the work in to get rid of the stuff, and that'll come off the valuation. So the value will come back up again, but they actually call it a weed infestation. So just a note on that in terms of the amount of work it is out here. You know, a lot of people say life sentence block. I find most of the people who say that people who live in town. The truth is there is a lot of work to do, but some people, if you're like me, you kind of enjoy that. I kind of like being productive. I like to get things done, and I can actually find it quite relaxing working out here, working outside. You know, it is hard work, but you do it at your own pace, most of it. Sometimes when you're working with stock and that sort of thing, there are things that you need to do urgently, things you need to go out in the rain and do, but I'm okay with all that. If you're the kind of person that likes to sit around all day drinking coffee and doing nothing, then maybe you need to consider whether you're ready for that. But if I did that and sat around all day drinking coffee, I'd just get bored. So I quite enjoy it. Okay, the other thing to make sure that you get is a master build guarantee. Okay, it's going to guarantee your house for 25 years, I think it is. So you don't want to be without that. And the other part of this is you hear stories of building companies going bankrupt and that sort of thing in the middle of builds and not finishing them. Well, if you've got master build guarantee, they're actually obligated to finish your build. So say you're with a company and halfway through they go bankrupt and they just leave your house as it is, because you have the guarantee, they will actually get another company in to finish that job off. You still have to pay, obviously the cost of it and all that sort of thing, but they'll make sure that that gets done. So that's sort of really your big cover. Again, getting your lawyer to check all that and make sure that all of that stuff is in place. Okay, so then maybe you get up to designing your house. The best thing we found is we looked at housing companies. We didn't have a lot of spare time or really know a lot about building to be able to project manage anything ourselves, both working full time and all that, so we went with a building company. This is the design that we ended up with, but just a great tip on when you're doing this, if you find a design that you like that's kind of close, what you do is you print two of them off. So you print one as a base and then print another one off, and what you can do is actually grab scissors and just cut out the rooms, and then you can fit them in different places. So for example, what we've done is this space here, the walk-in wardrobe and the ensuite, is actually meant to be in this space here, but we took it out and moved it back there in order to keep this space as an office. We've also added on this music room on the back of the house there, which is actually good for your value. I did that specifically because I do a lot of music stuff, but the valuer told us that actually adds a good amount of value, because it can be used as a rompus room. It could be considered as an extra bedroom. Hence, like I said earlier, the council wanted us to do an effluent field for a 5-bedroom, even though it's a 4-bedroom plus that room. It actually adds more value to the house than it costs to build that. So yeah, something to think about, and a little bit more surface area on that roof. Which it did mean that the roof design had to be redone for the house, but it wasn't a major. Yeah, but I mean, house design, I'm not going to tell you what to design because everybody's different. But just do consider that rainwater. What you're then going to need to do is you're going to need to place the house on your section. So this is an outline of our 5-acre section. Okay, you're going to need to decide where you want the house. So what we did is we actually pegged it out. We measured it all out and put pegs in the ground where we wanted it, and then we measured these distances to the fences. It's a good idea to have your house pegged out or spray painted on the ground or something before the guys come to do the foundation, because what we found was that some of these distances were actually recorded incorrectly. So when the guys came to measure out to place the foundation, I had left my pegs in where I wanted the house, and then they said, these measurements don't add up. Do you just want it where you've got your pegs? I said, yes, that's where I want it, that's where it should be. And then I just had to sign a piece of paper with the council to say that I was happy with that. Actually, that might not have been for that. That might have been changing the plumbing. Yeah. So anyway, they were able to place it off my pegs rather than just relying on these measurements, because I think it was this one here was recorded incorrectly. It was supposed to go into that corner, which I mean is you're measuring long distances over rough ground. That sort of thing can happen quite easily. So as long as you have it pegged out and you know exactly where you want it, you can make sure it goes in the right place. So the other thing to consider when you're doing your budget for your build is allowing yourself a little bit of leeway. Your bank will generally do that anyway. They like to allow for overspends because it is so common. But you're going to get halfway through your build and you're going to realise that you actually want that little bit of extra. The other thing to consider is interest rates. Interest rates might be low now, but where are they going to be in 3 years' time? Just make sure that you're putting a bit of buffer into all your figures so that you don't get yourself caught short any time in the future. Just make sure that you're going to be able to work to a higher interest rate, that you're going to have some room to upgrade some stuff during the build. So for example, this kitchen bench top here, standard that was a 4 mica bench top, and then we found out when we were designing the kitchen that it was going to cost less than $3,000 to upgrade to a stone bench top. So this is actually an engineered stone. It's a man-made version basically of a granite, but it's not the natural granite. And that's one thing that we're really glad that we did, that we upgraded, for that little bit extra. I mean, $3,000 might sound like a lot, but in the perspective of a whole build, it's really not. The other thing is your electric. So to have a good look at the plan and just look how many lights are in each room and that sort of thing. We basically ended up doubling everything that was in the house. Just about twice as many lights in each room, twice as many power points. But the other thing that we did is we went to LED lighting. So rather than having your traditional stuff, so these are extras. They were more of a feature light, but I've got LED bulbs in those too. But where are we? You can see that one up there is kind of like a little flashlight. So everything's LED, so they use less power. Turn the right switch on. Can't really see it because it's the middle of the day, but yeah, they work quite well. And just talk to your Sparky about those. Like we talked to a lighting store about them, and they sort of said, oh yeah, these are the lights you want and all this. And then we looked at the price and it was quite a lot. And then when we came back to the Sparky and talked to him, he goes, oh no, I can get them way cheaper through an electrical supplier rather than going through a lighting store. And then there's outside lights. We've got LED lights outside. We've got some halogens around outside, but you don't use them so often. So yeah, but allow yourself room to move, because you don't want to be without it. The other thing to think about is heating. You can see the fireplace behind us. That's all we have. We've just got that fireplace. Now with double glazing and stuff, the house doesn't really get cold. So that fireplace is enough to keep us warm. We don't need a heat pump, but sometimes heat pumps are more convenient. If you've got a fireplace, you've got to think about firewood. You've got to store firewood somewhere. You're probably going to have to cut it up, that sort of thing. But hey, that's all part of being out here, eh? Like, yeah, it's kind of personal preference, what you're into. Whether you just want to push a button and get instant heat, or if you like having a fireplace. Yeah, all that stuff's up to you, all the design stuff, all of that. But yeah, we definitely didn't regret doing the stone bench top or the double sink. Really handy having two sinks. Nice big kitchen. You can have a bit of extra sink, nice big one for being out here in the country. But yeah, that's getting into all the little nitty gritty design things that are all personal preference. But anyway, I hope this video has helped you out. Remember things like the wind zone that you're going to have to think about, rainwater and septic tanks, rough cost on those, both systems, around 30 grand. That's fairly common across the board. That's probably going to go up a bit since I've made this video, or even since we built. It'll, like everything else, inflation, it'll probably go up a bit. But that's with the secondary system. If you can have standard septic tanks, they'll be cheaper, but there's some issues that you can run into with those. So yeah, if you can go with the secondary system, definitely a better way to go. Yeah, thinking about power on site when you're looking at sections, looking for water, looking for power, what kind of driveway you're going to have to do, how steep it's going to be. You can get tradies up to have a look before you buy stuff. Just get them. You can get them to come and quote, you know, how much is it going to cost to put a driveway in here? How much is it going to cost to, you know, do the excavation, and get more than one quote. Your bank will tell you to get 3 quotes. It's actually a good idea. First section we looked at, we got 3 quotes on excavation and driveway. 2 companies were over 10 grand. One was just over 3 grand. And that was the company we ended up using here. Because actually, when they came out and quoted that one, they had done most of the other houses up that road. So we figured, you know, they know the land, they've done it before, and they're way cheaper. They're also a company that the local council uses, something to look out for. Councils tend to use better priced contractors. Yeah, because you'll get contractors that drive around in big flashy utes and charge big bucks for small jobs. The council's not going to hire them. Just, yeah, little tip there of someone to include in your quoting. But yeah, get quotes on everything from different companies. You'll be surprised how far apart they come. It can get a bit confusing when people have different ways of doing things, like running the power from the pole up to the house. We got 3 different quotes, and all 3 of them wanted to do it a different way, so there was a little bit of just taking a pick. I think we ended up just using the one that the housing company were going to use for the house, just to keep things simple, so you weren't having a crossover halfway through the job. Yeah, but I hope this has helped you out anyway. That's the whole purpose of it, just to give you some info, either before you jump in or to help you out if you're already on the journey. All the best. It is great to build out in the country, have a bit of space and that sort of thing, and it is a great way to create equity. So yeah, all the best with whatever your plans are, and yeah, go for it.